masterclass series, and each month we'll be having 4 sessions on focusing on a particular topic. And the focus of this month is HR. The first session today will be on talent acquisition, and for that we have with us Miss Lata Nambison, who's currently the managing partner of Savitor Business Consulting LLP. Savitor Business Consulting LLP focuses on individual and organizational change and transformation. Some of the assignments taken up include executive coaching, competency mapping, and competency-based learning programs, full cycle leadership development programs, organization redesign, sales organization effectiveness, the design of incentive plans, organization culture, performance management systems built on concepts of OKR, employer branding, employee engagement, and HR team mentoring. She was the ex-president of People and Culture of Servion Global Solutions. On behalf of TiE Chennai and the participants, I welcome you, ma'am, and invite you to take over the session. Thank you.
Thank you, Priya. Do you want to set some ground rules, or do I do?
Yeah. Sorry about that. We'll be having a presentation in the beginning. If in case you have any doubts that needs to be clarified, you can put the same in the chat box, and at the end of the session that will be clarified, and we'll have a separate Q&A where you can raise your hand. We'll unmute you and you can ask your doubts.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Priya. Thank you so much. Good evening, everyone. Great pleasure to meet all of you virtually. I wish it could have been in person. I think that's a wish that many of us are constantly echoing for the last two and a half months. It's also an interesting time to be talking about talent acquisition when globally a whole lot of companies are looking at how do we reduce cost, how do we reduce manpower. It's also a great time to be looking at how do we acquire talent, how do we set our companies on the path to growth. So it's very encouraging to have this discussion at this stage. I'm personally very interested in this conversation that we're going to have. I've said it's a conversation. I will take some time to walk you through some slides, given that it's a masterclass, but we will also have time for discussions. Like Priya said, if there are questions, do raise them. I'm most keen that this session is useful for you, and I've looked at it from that point of view. I've seen some of the questions that you raised, and I will weave them through my presentation. But if there are any others which are really pressing and you want answers on, please do reach out. Priya, I hope the audio is okay.
Yeah, it's perfect.
Great. Okay, so here we go, getting started. So in terms of the agenda, it's a 1-hour session. We have a few things we want to cover. The first is, even before you recruit, the idea is not to jump into recruitment. There are things that you need to do as you prepare for that. How do you write a good job description? Because a good job description is half the battle won in terms of hiring the right talent. How do you source talent? So are there different ways that we can do it? What is a good selection framework? Should we do tests? Should we do interviews? Should we do group discussions? What are the different ways that you can do things? What are some basic interviewing skills? We'll look at some basics, given that time is short. We'll look at a very quick introduction to how should I interview, especially many of you raised this question, how do I interview for attitude? Yes, it's easier for me to hire for technical skills, but how do I interview for attitude? So we'll look at that. If time permits, we'll do a small exercise on that as well to make ourselves familiar. We'll of course quickly go through reference checks. How do you make the offer? Or how do you get your new employee onboarded? How do you handle probation? how do you engage with your new hire? How do you ensure that your new hire almost lands running and takes off in the fastest possible way? Because in today's world, we have very little the luxury of time to allow people to settle down. I've also added a one slide on campus hiring to just look at all of that. And then, of course, some watch outs, some advice, some key tips that you should keep in mind as you get into recruitment. So this is really what we will cover. It's quite a bit, but I think we will go through it quite well. Okay, so I want to start by telling you and I'm going to really pepper this with examples from the various companies that I've worked with. So there were two people that I worked with, and I'm going to walk you through both those instances. And in both these companies, we did a great deal of hiring. So in the first company, the leader I worked with had a very unique style of selection. He would tell me, let's get the candidate in at 9 a.m. and spend the whole day. So this was on a Saturday. So we would start the interview process at 9 a.m. and have a series of conversations, have lunch with the candidate, have dinner with the candidate. And then after the whole thing is over, he would take the night flight or the train back home. So this was one case where, we spent a whole day with a candidate before we interviewed. Now, this is scenario one. Okay, please keep this in mind because you're going to, I want to get your inputs on how do you see this method of selection, a very detailed method. And then from that company, I moved to another company where the CEO had a very, very different style of interviewing. So he was a very intuitive person. So he said, chemistry is everything. If somebody has to succeed in my company, he or she has to get along with me. So what would the CEO do? The moment a candidate entered the room, he would actually take one look at the candidate when the candidate enters, hardly spend 10 minutes in conversation, and then call me and tell me, hey, we can go ahead with this candidate or we can't go ahead with this candidate. So that is scenario two. So scenario one, we interviewed for a whole day. And scenario two, we interviewed for 10 minutes and decided, is this candidate a good fit or not? So scenario two was all about chemistry. Scenario one was a very, very detailed logical analysis. So I want to stop here and make this participative. So we're going to do a quick poll. Priya, will you be launching the poll? I want each one of you to tell me first look at the first scenario and tell me, do you agree this is a good method of selection? Yes, no, I agree, disagree. And then we'll share the results of that. And then let's look at in scenario two and see, is this a good method of selection? I agree, I don't agree. So Priya, will you be able to launch the poll?
Yeah, I'm.
Okay, I want you all to vote. Can you see the voting button? Yeah. Okay, we have 70% voting so far. Yeah, that's 77%. Excellent. We have 80% now. Yes, this is a bit like fighting the elections, isn't it? But the advantage is we get to see the results right away. Yeah, so that's 82%. Yeah. Yeah, let's have a few more votes. We are at 82%. We'll go to 90% and stop. Is that a good target?
Yeah.
A few more votes. Okay, I think it's stabilizing at 82% voting. So the result is there for all of us to see. 61% agree and 39% disagree. So 61% think it's a good approach and 39% think it may not be the best approach. Yeah. Okay, great. Let's look at scenario two. In 10 minutes, we took a call. Is that a good approach or is that not a good approach? Priya, can you launch scenario 2? Thank you, Priya. So is scenario 2 a good approach? Yeah, I think we have 82%. That was the vote percentage last time too. So Priya, can I share the result? Yeah, we have 62% agree and 38% disagree. Okay. Okay. So do you want to know what I think of the two approaches? Which one was more effective? To be very honest, both had their flaws. Both were not great approaches because one was a pretty, we spent a lot of time with the candidate, but it was not really directed at understanding specifically what we were looking for. So generally we would look for something and finally at the end of the day, take a call based on did the candidate really, what was the last impression that the candidate left on us. Ideally, an interview should be very focused. A selection method should be very focused. You should know exactly what we are looking for and search for that. So I would say scenario 1, was it effective? Not really. It's a lot of time that you're spending. And yes, interviewing and selection is extremely important. It is one of the most critical decisions that you take as you run your business. But you should use your time effectively. That's scenario 1. Scenario 2 was absolutely chaotic. Why was that? Because the CEO, at least based on his many, many years of experience, was perhaps able to take a call in 10 minutes. Okay, maybe he had all that experience which helped him to take that. But the people who reported into him, everyone started doing that. And it becomes dangerous when the whole organization starts selecting people based on 10%. Our attrition levels soared. We were not able to retain people because obviously we hired based on first impression, and that's always not the most correct impression. So neither of these are the best approach. Therefore, what is the best approach? We'll see as we go along. Okay, I'm getting into the next part. So those of you who have ever attended any of my sessions will know that I always talk of sustainable competitive advantage. I always talk of differentiator. So I'm going to start with this. You cannot be effective in recruitment. I'm repeating that. You cannot be effective in recruitment if you are not clear about why should a candidate join me? Why should a new employee join me? What do I have to offer? Do any of you recognize this gentleman on that slide? That's Sridhar Vembu. He runs Zoho Corporation. He founded this organization more than 2 decades back. He was based in Silicon Valley till November or December last year. He moved to Tenkasi and he has set up his headquarters in Tenkasi. Please do look him up on Google. You'll find a lot written, an extremely inspiring way that he has built his company. The talents that he hires, he tries to hire from rural areas. He gives an education to people. He's not even looking for graduates. He's not looking for graduate engineers, but he builds products using them. You must review, you must see what he does, because he has succeeded in remaining at a rural place in Tenkasi and making that a great brand simply because of the investment that his company does in his people. His attrition levels are extremely low. He is a global benchmark in terms of how to manage your human resources, based out of Tenkasi in Tamil Nadu, a source of tremendous pride for Tamil Nadu. So that is really the importance of your employer brand. Why should a new employee join you? What do you have to offer? I work with a company, a technology company based in Pondicherry. They did a recent survey among their employees, and they found that over 90% of the employees had said that they love the training, that learning culture that the organization gives. So therefore, what do? They continuously give opportunities for people to develop. They give them better roles, they enhance their roles, they give them new opportunities. So that is one reason why people stay with them. I want you, each of you, to take 2 minutes, just 2 minutes, and look at what do you think is your employer brand? What is your differentiator? What is the differentiator for your company? I want you to just think for a minute about that. You may be CEOs. I've seen that many of you are managing directors, CEOs, HR heads, or even employees. It doesn't matter. Please look at it for your company. What differentiates your company from everybody else out there? What is your Zoho moment? What is your Zoho story? Okay, just take a minute and think about it. Because this is very critical if you want to hire great talent. Why should someone join you? So for example, there is another company that I work with, which is in microfinance, and all their employees are spread across Tamil Nadu in really rural areas. Now, what is their employer branding? That we care for your families. So what are they doing now? They are saying, how can we make sure that we take care of not just the employee, but the family also. So they bond with the family knows the organization. They take care of if there is a problem in the family, the first person they think of approaching is the branch manager of this company. That is the kind of bonding, and that is the employer brands that they have created. So their employees stay with them, because if they try to leave, their families will say, don't leave, please don't leave. This is a great company. We love this company. Do you remember that when our great uncle passed away, this company, the branch manager came and stood there and helped us. He gave us the money for the funeral expenses. So what is the value proposition that you are offering your employees? And I can assure you, I'm giving it to you as a promise, that if you address that, your chances of being able to hire and retain talent will be much more. So with that, I'm moving on from here, but I want you to start with this. What is your employer brand? Okay. Moving on. Now, before you recruit, before you look at how should I interview, where should I source people from, you need to be absolutely clear that you want to hire. There are several times I've seen that companies go out and hire because they just feel that, oh, this person is not working out for me. I need to hire a new finance manager because this person here who I have does not do this. So he goes out and hires a new finance manager and finds 1 month later that the old finance manager is better than the new finance manager. So you need to be absolutely clear, why are you wanting to hire? So what is it that is today not being done that this new hire will make possible? What is the business problem that this position will address? Are you looking at growth? If that's so, yes, maybe you need to hire. What is the real reason you want to hire? Have you considered whether it is possible to fill this role through outsourcing or consultants instead of bringing in a permanent person? So is there something that you can do from that point of view? What role expectations? So there is a whole set of questions, and they're all there on that slide. A whole set of questions that you have to explore before you jump into hiring, because otherwise what happens is that there is a tick in the box that you have to make that, yes, I've hired this person, and you just go out and hire someone and realize 1 month later that you either positioned the job wrong, or the new person is unable to perform because of the way you have structured your organization. So all of those issues come. So therefore, use this template. I'll forward this presentation to all of you. Use this template to think through, why am I hiring? Okay. So this is the first step. Before you recruit, what needs to be absolutely clear in your mind in terms of why am I recruiting? So do the why before you get into the what. Always, not just in recruitment, in anything, always look at the why before you get into the what. Okay, our normal tendency is to rush into the what and the how before we look at the why. Look at the why first. Okay. Now, once you've established that yes, there is a context to hire, I need to hire, the next one is to create a job description. Now, there are various templates for job description that you'll find if you Google. And you may say that I have the job description in my head. Okay, and as the promoter, as a HR head, nobody is going to ask you about it. But it's a great idea for you to write it down. Because when you write it down, you become clearer in your mind. So it's important to write it down. The best job descriptions are written from a KRA and an outcome point of view. What do I mean when I say KRA or outcome? Supposing I'm looking at a job description for a HR head. The outcome that I'm expecting from the HR head is that the person should be able to help me grow this company by 20% in the next 3 years, which means that I have to hire so many more people. So hiring becomes very important. So when I write that results down, the key skills, the skills that I cannot compromise on, and that's what we are saying, you have to look at what is essential and what is desirable. The mistake organizations often make is in saying that I need everything, I cannot compromise. It's just not possible to find a perfect 100% fit in the world. So you have to decide what is it that is non-compromisable, what can I compromise on, okay? So that is the reason a job description is important, and what you can compromise on and what you can't compromise on really depends on the results that you want the job to deliver for you. I'm moving on. So if there are questions, do feed them into Priya. She will take them after this. So getting into, so we've explored why do we want to hire. We've asked ourselves all those hard questions, and then we've created the job description. And now we're wondering, where do we source talent from? Okay. Now, one very, very important aspect is what's in it for the candidate. So very often we think that it really depends on what I am looking for as the company owner. It's also about why should a candidate join me? So it could be because this is a great opportunity for the person he or she is stepping up in their career. So hire someone who's one level lower today, because then that will motivate and inspire and engage them. If you hire someone who's, I've seen companies hire people who are holding better jobs than what you're hiring for and take job cuts to come on. There is some compulsion at that point of time because they're going through a bad time at their current job. But the problem is that 6 months down the line, this person will be back in the job market looking for something that will take him or her back to where they were before this. So important for you to establish why should a candidate join? And this is specific to each candidate. For someone, it may be a career growth. For someone else, it may be a learning. For someone else, it may be a relocation back to close to his or her family. It could be any of that. So what's in it for the candidate? Why should the candidate join you is a question to ask. Now, some watch outs here. All of us, the moment we say we are hiring, we all have a lot of well-wishers and friends who will tell you that, oh, you must hire this person. He or she is the best that you can think of. I know this person personally. Great idea to get those references. References are excellent as a source of recruitment. The point is, never do it as a favor to somebody. Be very rigorous, because you have at stake not just you're not just doing this for your friend, you're doing it for your entire organization. The future of the organization depends on this. So therefore, ensure that you don't look at it as a favor you're doing someone. You'll be doing a big disservice to your company when you do that. You have to give a deserving candidate a chance, but only if he or she deserves it. Okay. And for very difficult searches, don't keep beating about, hitting your head against the same wall. It will not get you results. You need to use a creative approach sometimes. So for example, I am looking for a skill which is very difficult to hire in the market. So especially in the technology sector, this happens, or even in the manufacturing sector. I want somebody with this certification. So for example, I remember 10 years back when I was hiring for manufacturing, I would say that I need a TIG welder certificate. And then I realized that it is extremely difficult to hire someone with that certificate. So what did I do? I went back and looked at, can I just hire somebody who's an ITI welder and then train him or her up? I realized that that helped me because one, I would train them in our methods. Two, they would be happy to work for me. They would think that, yes, they're getting a new opportunity, whereas a seasoned TIG welder feels that they are doing me a favor. So it's always good for it to be quid pro quo. Both the company and the candidate should benefit. So, and then of course, there are all of these various ways that you can source profiles from. Use all of them, really throw your search wide, but ensure that you don't compromise on what is essential for the job, and you are open to looking at what is not essential for the job. Okay, so we've reached up to here. We are now into choosing the right selection framework. Now, this is another important decision. You can see that there are technical tests, aptitude tests. You can ask somebody to make a presentation. A lot of companies do this now. They give them a topic and ask them to make a presentation. It's called an assessment center. So they give them a specific case study or a task which is related to the company and ask them to make a presentation. How would they address it? It's a good way to do it. There are behavioral or psychometric tests. My own advice is that psychometric tests are good to validate your views. Don't use it to weed out people, because psychometric tests, there is a dependability which is based on the mood of the candidate when they're taking it. There are extraneous factors, all of that. So never use a psychometric test to weed out candidates. Use it to validate your thinking, to give you further inputs on how should you help this person succeed. And then of course there are group discussions, case studies and all of that. But I want to just touch on two of these, which we do a lot of, which is technical evaluation and behavioral evaluation. So as far as technical evaluation goes, you really look at 5 aspects. You don't ask general questions, you ask specific questions that address knowledge. So for example, a knowledge question to a civil engineer would be, how many types of flyovers are there? Okay. You will check for what is their understanding of usage. So for example, the same civil engineer, you may want to ask, what is the construction material that is used for high-rise buildings? I'm just giving an example. Please pardon me, I'm not a civil engineer. So I know that there are some people from the construction industry here, but please bear with me if I'm making a mistake. I'm trying to illustrate this. If you were to ask a question on application, you could ask, how can construction principles be used in building say a water tank in a village, something like that. So that's an application. How do you use something? Concepts, check for concepts. So how do you plan the construction of a bridge? You could say that, I've seen the Howrah Bridge in pictures. What is the principle of construction that is used there? And then of course fundamentals, which is, can they do a root cause analysis? So a good technical evaluation looks at all of these, and your template for recording your evaluation should have how good is the candidate on each of these aspects. Yeah, and if somebody is really good at fundamentals, that's a very, very solid person that you should hire. Equally importantly is the behavioral evaluation, because obviously great technical skills without attitude, as many of you call it, and behavior does not help. And similarly, a very good employee who has very poor technical knowledge also will not work. So you need a good combination of both. Attitude alone does not carry the day. Skill alone does not carry the day. It has to be a combination of both. Now here, behavioral evaluation, you really look at evidence-based assessments. I'll talk a little bit about how do you do that. But before that, a few tips in terms of how do you interview. So one is make sure that you've seen the resume or biodata of the person you're interviewing. Okay, make note of time periods when there are gaps. Really do a deep study of the resume. So you need to be very selective of the people that you're interviewing. I've seen people who rush into interviews in the middle of 3 meetings in between. I'll come. The candidate is waiting there. So finally, out of sheer guilt that the candidate has been waiting for 3 hours, I rush in there and do a 5-minute interview. Does not help. Please ensure that you block time off on your calendar. This is very, very important from your company's future point of view. You're really being, it's an investment, and a very serious investment, given that just consider if the employee stays with you even for 3 years, the scale of the investment is very large. So spend that time, make sure that all required logistics arrangements are made. And today, of course, it has to be on video. Conducting the interview, make sure that, very often we do this. We ask a candidate to come in and say, just give me 5 minutes, sir, I need to go through this resume. Don't do that. Because the candidate is very nervous. And as you read and as the candidate is sitting, it gets more and more uncomfortable for the candidate and does not give his or her best. So you may miss out on great talent because of that. Ask questions that are very specific to the competencies that you're looking at. Normally, some people like to start with, tell me something about yourself. You could do that if you're checking for good communication skills, but otherwise, don't do that, because then what happens is the candidate really takes over the interview and sometimes talks for 20 minutes and you're losing a lot of time. Also, sometimes you don't need to really go through in point by point. You highlight what you want to check and just do that. When you close, definitely talk about the position that you're applying and make notes immediately after the interview. Making notes is important. Some of this discipline has to be followed really. Okay, and then of course, what are the different kinds of interviews? There are individual interviews, panel interviews. What's a reverse panel interview? There are several candidates to a single interviewer at the same time. So you're assessing like a group discussion really. And then of course, there is a serial interview where people interview one after the other. But it doesn't matter. Whatever mode of interview you choose, very important, don't make snap judgments. There are interviewers who talk a lot. Don't do all the talking. So that is important. Don't suggest what answer is desirable. Don't accept general answers. Ask for specifics. So for example of general answer, are you hardworking? Yes, I'm a very hardworking person. Now, what will you do from that? Every candidate will tell you that. Okay, so don't ask general questions. You will get general answers. And if you get a general answer, ask for examples. Say, give me a specific instance that will help me to understand that what you just said. Or give me an instance where you've had to work very hard to complete a project on time. So can you tell me an instance where you really had to work all through the night to get something done? Those kind of questions. Don't make decisions based on gut feel. So my second scenario, where in 10 minutes the CEO would decide, don't do that. Make it very specific. The best thing is to put down the competencies that you're looking for. And for each of that, in your mind, if you don't want to write, in your mind at least think through what questions you'll ask. Don't allow biases to influence ratings, and don't refer to don't refer to gender, don't refer to race, don't refer to caste, religion. All of those are not required. Okay, now we will do a small breakout activity, but before that, I'm going to demonstrate for you how do you really ask a behavioral question. So how do you evaluate for attitude? This was a specific question that many of you raised, so I'm spending a bit of time on this. So for example, let's take teamwork. Okay, teamwork is very important for this role, because this role has to work with several people in the organization and get things done. Now, how will I find out whether this person is good at teamwork? Because if I ask this person, are you a team player? The person will, everybody I can tell you will say yes. So how do I find out whether the person is good at teamwork, I ask behavior-based interviews. So for example, I will ask, have you ever played in a team sport? Okay. Tell me a time when you participated in a team activity and how did that go? Explain the whole situation to me. So ask for evidence of when they have done it. Tell me a time when you worked in a team and one team member did not cooperate with you. How did you handle that situation? Because I want this person to handle difficult team members well. Tell me a time when you were working in a team and you had to really take the entire load to get something done. Okay, these are all examples of how do you test for attitude or for diligence. Diligence is hard work. Tell me a time when you had to work extremely hard to complete a project on time. What was the toughest assignment you have done in your previous job? Tell me a time when you were stretched extremely hard to get multiple things done on time. Okay, so examples for diligence. Keenness to learn. Tell me a time when you learned, what was the last time you learned a new skill? How did you learn it? Have you learned things which are outside your domain? Explain, tell me about instances when you have learned those things. Okay. Tell me a time when it was extremely difficult for you to learn something, but you still did. So these are all examples of how do I evaluate for attitude. Okay. The last one, I'm not going to do this for you because I want each one of you to take this. So what Priya is going to do is she's going to break you into breakout groups. In your groups, I want you to come up with evidence-based questions to test for taking ownership. The best way, I said that the best way to test for attitude is to ask for evidence-based questions. Okay, ask evidence-based questions so that you really know. So taking ownership. What does taking ownership mean? That somebody is willing to put his or her hand up, volunteer, take things on, take accountability, take responsibility. As entrepreneurs, our teams taking ownership is something that all of us value tremendously. We want our teams to take ownership. Time and again, when I talk to entrepreneurs, they always say, how do I test for ownership? You know, my people don't take ownership. So we are going to do this. Priya, can you break this group into breakouts? We'll take 5 minutes. We'll bring you back in 5 minutes. Yeah?
Yeah. So 6, 7 in a...
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly 5 minutes. We'll bring them back.
Yeah.
If you can, all of you put your cameras on. Rare occasions to see each other.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi, sir. I'm Mr. I think others are.
Yeah, just waiting for others to land.
Yeah. So they have asked in terms of asking question in terms of ownership.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I just Googled it up. When in doubt, ask Google. Okay. So Google has shared with me top 5 Amazon interview questions asking about ownership.
Mm-hmm.
So one example is provide an example of when you personally demonstrated ownership. Another one is tell me about a time you went above and beyond your responsibility or something. Third one is tell me about a time when you took on something significant outside your area of responsibility. Why was it important and what was the outcome? And fourth,
Yeah, probably that is not 100% relevant, right? It is, we are looking for ownership within the existing job description, right? Not something outside of the current job description.
yeah, so it can be in terms of, sometimes it can be in terms of an extension of the job role, right? Where, say for example, yes, this is my job role.
Mm-hmm.
However, for that work to be completed, I'm in more like a sequence. The next person is not available,
Right.
or he's because of the 30% allowance right now, he has not reported to the office.
Yeah.
So the customer is not getting benefit because the chain is broken.
Yeah. So maybe small fine tuning of can you explain a situation where you were involved in circumstances where you were solely responsible for a customer success or something like that? Or it was a team situation where you ended up with a significant amount of responsibility and had to ensure going out of your way to ensure team success, something like that, right? That is what is the intent, right, of this question?
Yeah.
Can I interrupt?
Yeah, sure.
Yes.
Yep. See, I believe it start from leading from the friend. There, any situation, maybe whatever it may be, like any time frame, you can say that any kind of situations where whatever you want to start. Okay, so there it could be stuck. The first step, which is you have to lead from the front, right? That could be also, I can see that it apply for all situations.
So, I mean, do you have a suggestion on how to reword it? Essentially, it is leading from the front, showing
Right.
initiative to get things done.
See, we might
And
stuck with many things, right? Any maybe some kind of group recruitment. You would say that we can go for. You can go this sort of people. Like a campus internship or some technical aspect.
mm-hmm.
Whatever it may be, maybe in terms of recruitment, or if you want to approach some sort of sales. Okay, you're launching a product. You need to get the target audience, or sometimes for your salespeople,
Yeah.
you need this need to be cracked. They maybe wonder how they can launch the product or get to crack the first sales. Okay, that is you
So,
need to demonstrate, right? Something like that. It's
so
maybe apply for all level, maybe for the board board directors, or it could be for fleet on street, anybody, right? So
So I'd say, can we say that this is the question?
I did see some good questions in the group that I got assigned to. And it's nice to see all the faces once again. Thank you for putting on your cameras. We get to see faces so rarely these days. So it's very nice to see everybody's faces. Great. I'll move on and just, I'm almost at the end of this, and then we'll take any questions that are there. Reference checks are important. I'm sure all of you do this. Ensure that you get it done. Some of the questions that you can ask, and most important is the last question, would you re-employ him or her? It's a great way to find out whether this person was really good. Okay. So reference checks. And then once you've done all of this, make the offer. Make the offer exciting. So see how you can do, and the advantage that all of us face over the Wipros or the L&Ts of the world is that we will be in a position to personalize things. So write a personal email, call the candidate, make sure the candidate is excited about joining you, is looking forward to it. Make the whole joining process very smooth. So have someone from your office work with the candidate in terms of medical clearances, forms, declarations, all of that. Making it exciting is very important. Another favorite subject of mine, which is psychological contracting. People work with companies, not just because the salary is great. They work most often, they continue because of a psychological contract. That actually starts on day one. The picture that I have here is an example from a company that has really built a brand, the Arvind Eye Hospital. All of you have known this.
Ma'am, are you sharing the PPT? Because it's
Yes.
not.
It's not coming up?
seen. No.
Just give me a minute, I think. I'm so sorry. It's
Yeah.
yeah?
You
Shall
can.
I?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's come up?
Yeah, it has come.
I'm so very sorry. Yeah, I was on this slide. So I was just saying about psychological contracting. What is that? That's really about creating an emotional bond with your people, and that starts on day one. So this is a picture which is so full of joy. You can see that. It's a case study of the Arvind Eye Hospital, how they hire people and train. And again, they hire locally. They train them. They've been featured in the Harvard Business School for the wonderful way that they've structured their entire staffing. So worth looking at. So important to make a very great and memorable first day, so that people remember that for a long time. Okay? And then, of course, once the person is on board, it's a good thing to have a probation, because sometimes, despite everything that you do, a hiring decision can go wrong. So things have changed, circumstances have changed, all of that. So ensure though that you give your candidate notice. So review after 3 months so that you don't really stay with the problem. Okay, so that's as far as probation is concerned. Engaging with your new hire. Important to share your interview findings, especially in terms of supporting the person in developing where required. And then, of course, there is that today it's all about doing it remote, just as we're doing this session remote. It's also a great opportunity, because it means that you don't have to bring the person to your place to work. The whole talent map has opened up. You can hire from anywhere in the country or from abroad and have them work for you. So that's the big advantage. But otherwise, pretty much, please do follow all the steps, including the face-to-face interviews. Do it on video. Ensure that you connect with the person on video. So that's important. Just a small note on campus hiring before I take questions. It's a very different process. It's a structured hiring process. So important again, and I keep harping on this, that it is not just about following a process, it's about how do you differentiate yourself. So choose your campus very carefully. Which campus will you go to? Which one will be a great cultural fit for you? And how do you differentiate yourself on that campus? The campus that you choose to go to should really say that, you know, I welcome these people because these people will give my students great jobs. So be very selective of that. And finally, I want to leave you with some mantras for success. The first mantra, very important, hire with the future in mind. Okay, you may have a current problem, but please remember there are chances that 3 years later, 5 years later, the candidate that you hire today is still with you, and you do not want at that time to sit and say that, well, why it doesn't work for me. So hire with the future in mind, ensure a cultural fit, look for diversity. Don't hire just like me. It's very tempting to do that, but look for diversity. Make it a mutual win for the new hire and new hire as well as you. There must be a what's in it for me for both of you. be clear on the one aspect that you will not compromise on in the hire, and also be equally clear that 100% fit is a rarity. There is work to be done after the hiring is complete. The picture on that slide is of a Swiss knife. A Swiss knife works like that. Rarely will you find candidates who can be Swiss knives. So be realistic. Look for people who answer to the specific skills that you're looking for, and be willing to compromise on the rest. And that's really what will help you to really do a great job on recruitment. We have some time for questions, so happy to take questions. Priya? Yeah, I see someone has raised his hand.
Yeah,
Priya?
yeah,
Hello, ma'am. Ma'am, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Jawahar?
Yes, ma'am. This is Jawahar from Coimbatore. Ma'am, my question is, whatever, you do in an interview, right? Like, they tell all sorts of things to sell themselves. But once they come into the company, they don't seem like a good fit, because they don't get along with people. They may be a genius, but, when it comes to getting along with people and delivering the deliverables in a team, they don't really do well. So is there any way, once they come on board, yes, we have probation period and find out in next 6
Yeah,
months
but
to
it's
a
too
year.
late, right?
But it's
Yeah.
still late. But during the interview process, are there some indicators that would tell
So
me
there are,
that they are just lying,
right. There are two things which will really help. One is, like I said, evidence-based interview, where you're looking for examples where the person has worked in a team, worked with different people, gone out of their way to get things done. Ask for specific things that they have done. One. Two is, before you hire, in your reference check, if teamwork is very important, ensure that you ask the references that they have given you, and don't ask for references that they have given. Preferable that you find references on your own. It is easy to do that today because we live in a networked world. There is Google, all of that. So find somebody who has worked with that person and do a reference check. The reference check is very critical in ensuring that the person succeeds. Okay.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am.
Thanks, Jawahar. Priya? There were two more people who had raised their hands. Yeah, Priya, can you just enable audio for them?
Yeah, ma'am, this is Saurav here. Satish, I've unmuted Satish. Mr. Satish?
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Please go.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yeah. This is Satish Kumar. Right. I have a startup in Chennai. Right. And I'm sometimes I'm hiring very senior guys. Right. The startup. More than 50 years, 60 years, around 60 years.
Satish, your voice is fading. I can't hear you.
Sorry about. Is it okay, madam? Is it good
Now
enough
I can. Now I
speak?
can hear you. Yeah, now I can hear you.
All right. Yeah. See, madam, I have a startup in Chennai. Right. Sometimes we are hiring very senior persons, right, for certain roles, right. So they are very close to either retirement or post-retirement age, or above 50 years of age, right. Our team is a young team, and the candidates who are coming with a lot of experience, we are thinking that they are going to add a lot of value, right, to and they will be able to coach the young boys, and they'll be take them along. But after they come in, we find they are trying to act in as a different with the different set of attitude, which is not actually gelling with the existing culture or the existing interrogation culture what we are having in our company. So period of time, we find it difficult, right? We find it difficult to find a suitable, task assigned to them, right? We are thinking, we're thinking to hire for one task, and then later we find that, this person, may not be able to take that much. It is better that, I do it everything on my own, right? So then I have to find another task for them, to look after. So there are, these sort of problems, whenever we are going to hire, very, very senior persons, we need to know how they are going to fit into that existing setup. So how we do that assessment, and that is number one. Number two is that, what is the easy way, right, for what is the easy way for both of us, right, down the line, right, if we want to, break away, right? So how are we, what would be the easy way? What sort of, terms and conditions? What sort of, like, probation? Probation is one thing, but is there something else, which will basically we have to define the task, the targets, the expectations, so that we can put everything in right, so that it is actually taken care down the line. So that's a question. Yeah.
Okay. So first is, Satish, I'm going back to that point that most often we need to hire for the future, keeping the future in mind. So when you are hiring these people, you should actually ask yourself, 3 years down the line, 5 years down the line, what do I do with this person? Now, assume you still need to hire this person for the current skills, because currently there is a gap and you want this person to come in and fix that. What you should actually do is to hire on contract, perhaps. You should look at alternative means of employment. So maybe you can give a consultant job, which is for a short period of time, say 1 year, and say that it will be renewed based on fresh requirements that come up. You could do a work charged kind of job offer, which is really based on certain milestones that they need to deliver, and you pay based on that. So the good part is that today it is possible to creatively structure those kind of employments. You don't have to take everybody on your roles as your employee. Make it fixed terms so that at the end of 1 year, you can always take a call whether you want to continue the person or not. Plus, before you interview, I'm going back to the interview criteria. Ensure that you have clarity. If coaching is something that is very important, ensure that you test for how have they coached and all of that. Even in your reference checks, ask that specific point. Has this person coached others? How many people has this person grown in his career before this? Ask those questions. Okay, that should really help. Does that answer?
Yeah. Yes, madam. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Saurav, can you unmute somebody else, please?
Hi, Madam Anamika here. So
yes,
I would like to ask, how do I reach out to these rural candidates who really have the capability, but I'm not able to reach out to them. Right now, I'm using only job boards, Naukri or Monster and all that. But how do I reach out to these candidates, rural candidates?
Yeah, it's a great question, really. So there are various ways that you can. One is, I've known, because I used to work in the retail sector. I was head of HR for Food World when Food World first started in India, and we used to struggle to hire people we used to go to corporation schools. The headmasters would keep in touch with a lot of candidates, so they would give us profiles. We would go to the local panchayat people, they would give us candidates. So there are influence leaders in the villages that if you can get to, they will get you profiles, and there is a sense of ownership then that they should ensure that the guy does a good job. So they will also ensure that. So Anamika, that I think has helped me in the past. Yeah. There was another question that somebody had asked about, how do I tap the people from the US, for example, who want to come back? That's a tremendous question. That's a very good question. Because it's a fantastic pool of talent available for a tech company. Having said that, one thing that you have to really be careful about is the culture that you have in your company and the culture of the person coming in, because people who come in from Silicon Valley have a certain expectation in terms of freedom and culture and all of that. So if you're bringing somebody from there, please ensure that there is a cultural match before it happens. So that was something that I picked up on the questions. Yeah. Saurav, any other questions? Are we running out of time, Priya? Are you okay?
Hi, ma'am. Very good evening. Amishi is side. I
Yes,
would like
Amishi.
to ask something. Yeah. So thank you so much for your time, ma'am. My question is a general question. Sometimes at the time of the interview, candidate didn't share they have the offer in hand, and they interviewed and they got selected with us, or so many people is facing the same problem. But at the time of the joining, they just told us and they sent me an email regarding for the same, ki, ma'am, I have already an offer in hand, and I just don't want to continue in your company and in your organization. So by this way, we just so much time is
Lose
wasted.
time.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
Amishi,
how to solve this?
yeah, good, very good question, because that is unfortunately the reality, that people have choice, and therefore, so one that I've found is that one way that I've found is to really look at why is this candidate looking for a change, and is it so if the candidate is looking for salary, for example, they will definitely go to the highest bidder. So I would not even look just for that. But I will see if the candidate is perhaps looking for learning a new skill. I'll see if I can make that available. So that's the differentiation that you can build in. And be selective that if someone is looking only for a salary jump, if you still need that skill, you may still hire and say that, yeah, this is the risk. Be aware of the risk that somebody is likely to leave. I probably need a backup. But in all cases, I may not hire somebody like that. So, but unfortunately, Amishi, that's the reality that we live in.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you for the question.
Hello, ma'am. This is Jawahar again. A follow-up question.
Yeah.
Can you hear me, ma'am?
Yes, I can.
Okay, ma'am. So my question is, see, once you hire a person and you know certain skills are lacking, attitude is good, but certain skills are lacking. So I spend quite a bit of money in training them for a year, and then they learn all the skills for the 1 year, and then they quit the company, because especially in IT, right? IT kind of companies where the competitor is offering more money, and immediately they jump boats. So it's kind of it's too expensive for companies to train people for a year or two and then let them jump companies. So is there a way that we can put a bond in writing that you have to work for my company 5 years after the 2-year training periods, something like that? Just I want to get your thoughts on this.
Sure. Java, my personal view is that there is nothing wrong in that. Okay. Because I have spent money to train somebody up in the fair expectation that that person will work with me and do what is required. So none of us have money that we can spend and train people up and let them go. So I would say you're perfectly within your rights to make a bond for the person, but ensure that you're fair in that, and ensure that it should stand the scrutiny of a court of law. So which means that you really look at what is the money that you've spent, what is the cost of replacement of the hire. So you break it up so that it is justifiable. And then there is absolutely nothing wrong with the bond.
Okay. So legally it is acceptable. I mean, the labor laws do allow these bonds.
If it is fair, we've seen that it has not stood in the way. So it is important for you to show that yes, that training cost money. So you have to do that calculation and show that it is not some figure that you pulled out of the sky.
Okay, got you.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks. Thank you.
Priya, can we
Yeah. Yeah.
close? I
Yes.
think it's beyond time.
Yeah.
But
Thank
thank you so much for the questions and the interactions. Thank you. And thank
Yeah.
you, Priya, for the opportunity.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for your time and for the wonderful presentation and engaging our participant. I'm sure there are a lot of questions being asked and a lot of answers which they have got today. And they will be a part of our next three sessions too. So looking forward, and thank you all. Thank you participants as well as my colleagues here. Thank you so
Thank you,
much.
Priya and Saurav. Thank you, everyone.